The Detroit Lions play football tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Detroit Lions will kick off their 2024 preseason campaign in New York against the New York Giants. Now, yesterday we went on a deep dive. We talked about the Detroit Lions offense, the potential starters, the potential stars, players to look out for, and what to look for in some of these Detroit Lion depth pieces. And today we are going to do the same thing for the defensive side of the ball, as well as a couple of special teams players. And for me personally, I think the defense is a little bit more intriguing than the offense is going to be because we know how good the Lions offense is. We know how good Ben Johnson is. We know how good Jared Goff is and St. Brown is going to be. And there really aren't too many big question marks on the offense, right? It's really how well is JMO going to perform and how far is he going to develop and how many points can the Detroit Lions put up on any given Sunday, because it really feels as if the sky is the limit. But the defense has a lot more question marks, right? Last season, they ranked 23rd in the NFL as a secondary. Their defense was by far the weakest point of their team. And with all of the additions of free agency and the draft process, there are so many new faces that I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this defense shapes up. Now, of course, the starters are not going to be playing tonight, right? Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil and Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone and Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are not playing. But I do think we'll still get a good look at some of the depth pieces. I think we might get a look at a couple of potential starters tonight, and I think we'll get a good opportunity to see just how good the depth on this defense is, which will potentially give us some information about how good the starters will be. Now, my potential starting 11, the starting 11 I project for tonight is going to be this. The defensive line is going to be made up of James Houston, Rodrick Martin, Levi Onwuzurike, and Matthew Betts. Two pass rushers on the outside that are much better pass rushers than they are run stoppers. Levi Onwuzurike, again, a better pass rusher than a run stopper, and Rodrick Martin, the third-round selection from a season ago, who, from all accounts, has taken quite a few strides forward throughout training camp and looks like a much better and far more polished player. Now, of course, they will rotate out with a couple of bigger body guys, a couple of guys that are better run stoppers, right? There's going to be a lot of different formations, but I would guess we see the most out of these four players on the defensive line tonight. They're the best pass rushing options. I think they're the most talented options, and I think they are the guys fighting for those final spots on the roster, especially when it comes to the edge rushers. Now, at linebacker, this is where it gets a little bit less intriguing because I think the linebacking core is pretty much set in stone. I don't think there's anything that Neiman or Jefferson can do to really make this roster, as Alex Anzalone will be the starter and the captain. Jack Campbell will make the roster and play a lot. Derek Barnes will make the roster and play a lot. Malcolm Rodriguez will make the roster. Jalen Reeves-Maybin will make the roster. And really, that's all you need for a team that doesn't run a whole lot of three linebacker sets to begin with. Five linebackers is more than enough for the Detroit Lions, and they can then save those roster spots for other deeper positions, such as the offensive or defensive line, the secondary, or other positions they feel necessary. But I do think tonight, Malcolm Rodriguez will get some playing time. I think of the five linebackers that are solidified, Malcolm Rodriguez is the one that will probably play in the preseason. And then, of course, you have Benjamin Neiman as well as Malik Jefferson taking up the other two linebacking spots and taking most of those roles. In the secondary tonight, I do think we see both Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw at least start the game for the Detroit Lions, in a very similar trend to what was happening last year with obviously Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, and Sam Laporta. The Lions starters, the Lions big-time rookie players did play the first drive or two. Obviously, Brian Branch had that large hit on Cole Beasley last preseason. Jahmyr Gibbs got, I think, 2 carries for 26 yards. Sam Laporta had a target before being taken out, right? They will get limited reps for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if both Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw are thrown out there for the first series, for the first couple of reps, for the first couple of targets, and then they get pulled about midway through the first quarter. Not really going to put them at too much risk tonight, but also getting their feet wet as far as NFL terms are concerned, maybe potentially getting them a couple of targets. But I think as far as the safeties go, I think that Ifiatu's out. I think that Kirby's out. I think that Brian Branch is out. And I think we'll see a lot of Brandon Joseph tonight, as well as Elijah Moore, as they rotate in and out with a couple of other players in the secondary that I really like, including Maurice Norris. Now, a couple of other players I think will be out tonight. Obviously, the starting defense, so Hutchinson, Aleem, Reeder, Davenport, all of the linebackers we talked about, as well as Davis and the safeties. I do think Amik Robertson will not play tonight, despite being a newcomer to the defense. He is likely the starter at nickel cornerback. I think the Lions know what they have in Robertson. They know he's going to play. They know he's going to be impactful, so that he's probably going to be on the bench. Ifeatu Melifonwu, same way, technically might be safety 3, but they know what they have. They know what they can do, and Ifeatu, quite honestly, might not even be healthy to play as of right now, as he did miss yesterday's training camp, or the last training camp day. Josh Paschal, similar boat. They know what he is. They know what he can do. He's right up there next to Aiden Hutchinson with the first team sometimes. I don't think he plays a whole lot, if he plays at all in the preseason. Same thing with Jalen Reeves-Maybin, right? Technically a backup, technically a special teams captain, but you know what you have. You know what role he's going to play. You know how well he's going to play it. There is no need to put him at risk, especially at MetLife Stadium tonight. Those guys are likely going to hit the benches early. Now, getting into some of the exciting players tonight a little bit more in depth. James Houston and Matthew Betts, I think, are the two most exciting players to watch tonight. Two pass rushing specialists, two players that are very, very good at getting after the quarterback. And I'll be really interested to see just how much pressure this duo can cause and how much havoc they can wreak on the opposing offense. Starting off with James Houston, we all remember that 2022 campaign. 8 sacks, 7 games, 11 QB hits, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and truly a dominant 2 months of football from James Houston. He started off the 2023 season pretty well, having one of the few quarterback hits on Patrick Mahomes in week 1, being, wrapped around his knees, pulling him to the ground, and Patrick Mahomes barely being able to get that ball away. He had a couple of pressures versus Seattle before breaking his, I believe, fibula in the week 2 matchup versus the Seahawks. Came back for the NFC Championship, had a pressure off of had a pressure off of Trent Williams, was able to get a couple of pressures and a quarterback hit versus the 49ers. Every time James Houston is on the field, he makes plays. He gets pressure. He puts the pressure and heat on the quarterback. I think he will do exactly that tonight versus the Giants. And then you have Matthew Betts, the CFL Defensive Player of the Year from a season ago. 18 quarterback sacks and 4 forced fumbles. A good get off, a quick burst, pretty good power, a good pass rusher, and potentially a guy that some people even believed could go as far as to be the starter by week 1 of the NFL season. Now, I won't go that far, but I do have high expectations for him tonight. Hopefully, we see him getting quite a few pressures, collapsing the pocket, getting around the edge, and of course, getting sacks on the quarterback. But I really do think that this defensive duo will have a lot of pressure. They will cause a lot of havoc tonight, and I'm excited to see what they can do and how often they can get to the quarterback. I also think we will see a very healthy dose of Nate Lynn tonight, the undrafted rookie free agent from William & Mary, who last season with the Tribe had 8 sacks and 11 tackles for loss, and in his career at William & Mary had 28 sacks, 40 tackles for loss, and 12 forced fumbles. Now, he's not necessarily the same type of player as James Houston or even the same type of player as Matthew Betts. I don't think he's quite as long. I don't think he's quite as bendy as those guys, but obviously the production at college speaks for itself. And I do think he is a better run blocker than those two players as well. So we might see a little bit more of him due to that being a little bit more of his wheelhouse. Taking a look at the interior, Rodrick Martin is, I think, one of my favorite players in the preseason that's going to be fun to watch. 6'5", 330 pounds, put on noticeable muscle this offseason to be bigger, faster, and stronger. He is the nose tackle for tonight, the 3rd round pick, the project player, showed a couple of flashes in his game times last season, played versus the Raiders, and I thought made a couple of really nice plays. Coming back into this preseason, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's a little bit, more nuanced and polished as a prospect. I'm really excited to see what he can do on the defensive line. He, again, is more of a run stopper than anything, but I think especially after the flashes we saw last year, I'm excited to see what a more polished version of Rodrick Martin can look like. And then Leveon Werner has apparently been one of the best players at Detroit Lions training camp. A 2nd round pick in 2020, a pass rusher, a standout. The only problem with Levi is that he has yet to be healthy for a season, right? His rookie year played 17 games, but suffered through a back injury the whole time. His 2nd and 3rd years did not play really at all for the Detroit Lions, again, suffering through those injuries. And last year actually started in week 1 at the defensive tackle position, had a couple of pressures, but again, got benched, got moved around. The injuries really hurt him. And then he's back again this year, looking like a star in training camp and looking like a player the Lions could potentially rely on. But again, is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be consistent? And what is that going to look like for the Detroit Lions going forward? Moving in to the secondary tonight, Stephen Gilmore, a player that has yet to be talked about this offseason, has been great throughout camp. Some people said at the Giants training camp and joint practices, he looked like the best defensive back out there. A 2023 undrafted rookie free agent, a preseason star last year where he totaled 10 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a touchdown in the final contest versus the Panthers. He is really good. He is really quick. He's got good ball skills, good instincts. He is a guy that I thought deserved more playing time last year. I thought deserved a shot to get on the field, especially with the secondary struggling the way that it was. And I think he might very well be the most impressive secondary member again in this preseason. You move over to one of my favorite players in the secondary in Brandon Joseph, the former All-American, the preseason star from last year, a camp standout. Dan Campbell came out and said that there were some big expectations for Brandon Joseph this offseason, and a player that just all around makes a lot of plays in the secondary. Is he the biggest tackler or the biggest hitter? Absolutely not. But he is a guy that will go get the football. He will take the football away for your defense. And I'm excited to see him play as well. A player that in college totaled 10 interceptions, 7 passes defended, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Brandon Joseph is a ball hawk. He'll take the football away, and he's really, really fun to watch. And then I know I said it a lot today. My all-time absolute favorite undrafted rookie free agent from this class is Maurice Norris, the captain at Fresno State from a season ago, a very similar player and play style to Brian Branch, a scrappy playmaker, a guy that takes the football away, a guy with great instincts, and a player that has been playing really, really well in camp. At Giants joint practice, he had one of the biggest hits with the second team defense, and he's great. He's at a great camp. He's super physical. He's a slot cornerback with safety versatility, a big hitter, ball skills, instinctual. If you watched this guy at college, if you watched him at Fresno State and you put Brian Branch's name on the back of the jersey, you would have no idea that they were different players. They play the same, they run the same, they make plays the same way, they lead the same way. Their instincts are very similar. Like, they are carbon copies of each other. And I know that one went in the second round and one went undrafted. Maurice Norris played much lesser competition, had much lesser statistics, but he is a player that is very, very good. And I am super excited to see what he can do. I think he might be the talk of the game when it's all said and done with his playmaking ability. And then we talk about some of the late game players, right? I think that Mitchell Agude, a player that, a couple of months ago, we were talking about with James Houston being out as a player that looked really good, had some bend, was getting some pressures and some sacks, even on the second team offensive line. Of course, Mekhi Wingo, the 6th round selection from LSU, a pass rushing interior guy that's going to be really fun to watch. He's a great leader, got a great motor, a great Lions player. Isaac Ukwu, the Ole Miss pass rusher, the Ole Miss edge rusher that is, of course, an undrafted rookie free agent, signed to that signing bonus, one of the few players to get one as an undrafted rookie free agent. The Lions clearly see something they like in him. I think Lauren Strickland is one of the biggest hitters from this undrafted rookie class. I'm very excited to see him on special teams and potentially at safety. And then, of course, we can't not talk about Jake Bates. I know he's not a defensive player, but he'll be very interesting to watch. He'll be a player that obviously I think will get some opportunities to kick, potentially from short, potentially from long. And I'll be really interested to see how good he can be. Again, a little bit outside. The winds might be going in MetLife tonight. Obviously not home at Ford Field where he'd prefer, but I'll be very curious to see what Jake Bates can do, what he looks like in live game action, and finally getting to see him kick for the Detroit Lions. But with all of that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. I know it was a ton of information, a ton of players, a ton of talking points, but I really do think that this defense is going to be really, really fun to watch. There's going to be a lot of big players, a lot of big plays being made, ton of guys to watch out for. And I can know that tomorrow morning, I will be watching the tape. I'll be watching the film, and there will be a ton to talk about with each and every one of these guys. So with each of that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please go down below and do so. You are 14 minutes into a video about the preseason backup starters for week 1 of the NFL preseason. If you're here still, you obviously like the Lions content. You obviously love the Detroit Lions. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you never miss a Detroit Lions upload. If you have yet to do so, that would help the channel out a ton. But with all of that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.